On October 6th of 2024, I officially ran my first marathon. My goal finishing time was under 3 hours and 30 minutes, and I ended up finishing in 3 hours and 28 minutes. It was a challenge unlike many others, from the beginning of training to the finish line at the race, and it was chock full of lessons all the way through. I wanted to make this video to share some of those lessons, share some of the mistakes I made, and the things I learned along the way, so that it can hopefully be helpful to you. If you're interested in doing any kind of distance, a 5K, 10K, half marathon, whatever, I hope that some of the lessons that I learned from doing my first ever marathon can help you to train better and feel more prepared on race day. So with that, let's get into the lessons. So section 1, before the race. Training was, of course, the most impactful thing on my race day performance. The effort that I put in was what enabled me to cross that finish line in the time that I did. Here are a couple of things that I learned from my training experience. First of all was the program that I did was a heart rate based program. So most of the training that I did was in low aerobic zones, where like zone 2, zone 3, where you're kind of not really pushing it too hard and you're trying to keep your heart rate low. It's supposed to benefit your physiology. The science suggests that it helps you develop more mitochondria and helps your oxidative system function more efficiently for a longer amount of time. However, there were a couple of pitfalls that I experienced that I would want to be aware of if I were to be starting this process over from the beginning. The primary thing that I think my training plan lacked was high intensity work. There were some threshold runs and high intensity runs, but most of the time those runs were fairly short. It was like 5 minutes in threshold or zone 4, and then rest periods in between, and those workouts almost never exceeded 40 minutes in total. And so I felt like I wasn't necessarily prepared to run at race pace, which was in a much higher heart rate zone, because I hadn't spent a lot of time in that heart rate zone getting myself ready for it. Towards the end, I started incorporating much longer runs at threshold pace, so I was running sub 8-minute miles for upwards of 10 miles just to kind of get myself ready. But unfortunately, a lot of those runs came later in my training plan, so I don't think they had enough time to really benefit my physiology. They did benefit my mental game a lot, and they allowed me to feel a lot more prepared on race day, but physically I don't think that it helped me very much, and it might have actually led to a little bit of overtraining, so we'll get more into that later. Another really important component before the race was visualization. Just the practice of imagining yourself crossing the finish line and under your goal time and just celebrating, right? Visualization was a big part of my process because it helped me to just sit there and imagine my race and feel prepared for everything that was going to come my way. I looked at the elevation graph beforehand, and I made sure I knew when all the big hills were coming, knew when all the aid stations were, and was mentally prepared for the difficulty that I was going to face while I was on the course. But most important is visualizing that success, right? That idea in your head that you can do it is a very powerful tool, and it can carry you across the finish line. Another very impactful piece of training and piece of preparation is obviously your diet. The things that you're taking in are obviously very important for how your body is capable of adapting to the new load that you're putting it under and bouncing back and being stronger. So for me, the things that I was focusing most on were drinking plenty of water, supplementing plenty of electrolytes. At first I wasn't tracking my protein, but once I started tracking my protein and I started trying to hit that recommended benchmark of around 0.7 to 1 gram of protein in your diet per day per pound of body weight, I noticed that I actually had a lot more energy. When I woke up in the morning and I was about to go do my run, I felt a lot more energetic and ready to do it. And so I was able to push myself a lot harder later in my program when I started tracking my protein. Sleeping was a major component of my pre-race preparation. Trying to get 8 to 10 hours a night was very helpful in making me feel refreshed when I wake up, allowing my body plenty of time to recover, and just feeling strong in general. Some things that I did to help myself sleep at night were I supplemented magnesium and ashwagandha for relaxation and recovery every night. And I also just like to drink a cup of tea and read my book while I'm winding down, and that helps me out immensely. Now, I didn't get 8 to 10 hours every single night, and so sometimes when I fell a little behind on sleep, I would take a 30 to 40 minute nap later in the day just to catch up a little bit, and that always made me feel a little bit more rejuvenated. Now let's get to section 2, during the race. During the race, there's a lot of things to keep track of. First on that list for me was nutrition. I wanted to make sure that I was bringing stuff that I was comfortable with so that I wasn't relying entirely on race nutrition. So this meant I brought a lot of goos and gels and stuff that I was familiar with, so that when I was eating it on course, trying to supplement my glucose or get a little extra sodium in, I wasn't eating something that was completely foreign to me that I just picked up off of an aid station. I don't know how it would have gone if I relied on race nutrition, and I actually had a friend who just did it on race nutrition and he did great, so power to him. But for me, I didn't want to risk bonking, getting that just like rock in my gut and having to deal with that. That's just something that you'll have to figure out for yourself. You got to test that stuff out and see what works for you. In running a marathon, pain is inevitable. It's something that you're gonna have to deal with along the way, so you should be ready to deal with it. Some of the things that helped me handle the pain were I would just punch my legs every once in a while to make them, just to distract myself, which I got some weird looks for, but honestly, I'm running a marathon, like it's already a kind of weird thing to do, so I'm not too worried about it. Another thing that some people do for pain management is they take over-the-counter pain meds like Advil or Tylenol. I had never experimented with taking Advil or Tylenol before this race, and so choosing to experiment on it during the race was a mistake. Now, even though I kept track of all of my other nutrition and I made sure I brought my own stuff that I was comfortable with, I did decide to take Advil during the race to deal with the pain, and unfortunately, it actually created more pain because it created this very sharp sensation in my gut that was very difficult to manage. You gotta understand your own body beforehand, you gotta know what's going in, and you gotta be ready for it, right? So for me, taking Advil was not the right move, but for some people, it works great, and some people swear by it. So you gotta test what's right for you and make sure you're ready to do that on race day. Another very helpful thing during the race is your mental game. What you do in your mind will dictate your race, 100%. Talking to yourself in a positive way, telling yourself that you can do it, that you believe in yourself, and that you trained for this, all can be very helpful while you are running. Because, like I said, pain is inevitable. It's gonna hurt, and your body is gonna want to quit. It's gonna want to tell you to stop immediately. But it's up to you to not listen. Number 3, after the race. After the race was a unique experience. This was the furthest I had ever run and the fastest I had ever run. Even in my training runs, I hadn't gone this far and this fast. And so my body was destroyed, bro. Destroyed. I couldn't walk, I was limping, it was just brutal for days afterwards. And actually, even weeks afterwards, I still had pain in some parts of my leg that are just still dealing with it. That's partly due to what I mentioned earlier, that overtraining, because I had started going way too fast, way too far, and my body wasn't ready for it. And so, particularly on race day, that amount of effort that I put in really destroyed my body and stressed some of my tendons. So I do not recommend that form of training. Definitely work up to it and give yourself a lot of time to prepare for a marathon, and prepare wisely. In order to deal with a lot of the muscular pain that I was feeling, I rolled out and stretched. And those two things are things that I did during training a lot, and they're just very helpful. I like to roll out before I stretch because it improves my blood flow a little bit, makes me feel more flexible, and also helps reducing your risk of strain when you do stretch. Another very important component of recovery was walking. Just doing a bunch of walking, getting on my feet, moving my legs around, helped those muscles recover a lot better because it didn't just tense up into a solid position. And I know that you're gonna want to lay down I didn't want to do anything other than lay in bed for days after my race. But I got up and I did a lot of walking because having that blood flow moving through your legs helps the recovery process a great deal, and it helped me a lot. Another really big component of post-race recovery is mental recovery. Achieving a big goal can leave you feeling kind of adrift, and for me, I certainly felt that. I gave a lot of effort for this goal, and I worked really hard for it day in and day out, and then even during the race, I put in a great amount of effort, much greater than I had ever put into anything before, because I really wanted to achieve this goal. For me, I'm a very routine-based person, and when I was training for the marathon, everything just kind of fell into place. You have to do your run, you have to eat good, you gotta sleep plenty, you gotta go to bed at this time so you can sleep plenty, and my whole routine kind of fell into place. But afterward, I wasn't going on runs, and I didn't really feel like I needed to eat good anymore, so this all kind of disappeared, and my day-to-day routine became very just loosey-goosey. Something that I did to really work through this after the race is just picking up other hobbies, picking up non-active hobbies that, since I literally could not run, allowed me to fill my time with things that I cared about and learn new skills. For me, some of that stuff is like writing and making bread. I started making bread. I tried to make focaccia. The first focaccia I made was very dry. It was very dense focaccia. It was not very good, I must say. But I made some bread anyway, and that helped me a lot in my process of mental recovery after the race. Ultimately, I realized that it's not about the achievement. It's not about what you're training for. It is about what you do to train for that thing. Whether it's you're training for a 5K, whether you're training for a marathon, whether you're just making bread. If you are putting effort in and day out, and you're allowing yourself some structure, and it's creating a life that you feel happy living, then that's a wonderful thing. So set ambitious goals. I'm all for that, 100%. I love ambitious goals, but also have realistic expectations and set non-ambitious goals too. Learn how to make bread, learn how to write, read a book. Just allow yourself some small wins along the way and allow yourself a daily routine that you feel comfortable and happy in. Thank you so much for watching. The process of making this video has been a little bit tedious for me. I've had to re-record this 3 separate times. So I appreciate you watching, and I appreciate you liking, commenting, whatever, subscribing if you want to see more content like this. I tried to put a little more effort into this one, into the shots that I'm doing, and I hope you enjoyed it, because my process of training for a marathon was super fun, and it was great, and I wanted to share that with you guys. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.